In the Zen tradition, there is an ancient teaching known as the 10 Bulls. It begins not with triumph, not with enlightenment, not with clarity, but with footprints. A wandering seeker walks along a quiet path and notices something on the ground. Marks in the dust. Someone has walked here before. This simple discovery changes everything, because if there are footprints, then there is a path. And if there is a path, then peace is not a myth. It is not an illusion. It is not reserved for the extraordinary or the gifted. It has been found before. It can be found again. Tonight we begin there, not at the end of the journey, but at the first noticing. The first soft recognition that something in life feels incomplete. The first quiet suspicion that there may be more than this restless circling of thought and effort. Perhaps you have felt it. A subtle dissatisfaction that does not go away even when things are going well. A sense that you are moving constantly, yet not arriving anywhere. A quiet wondering late at night, or in the stillness before dawn, asking, is this all the Buddha taught? That the path to peace is not hidden. It is not locked away in secret temples. It is not granted only to those with rare abilities. The path is woven into ordinary life. It is present in markets and kitchens, in forests and busy streets, in the sound of rain and the warmth of a cup of tea. But we must learn to see. Before we go further, allow yourself to settle. Here on the long night, this space is always here for you, a quiet place to return whenever the day feels heavy. If these stories bring you peace, you're welcome to stay close and subscribe so you can find your way back easily. There is nowhere else you need to be right now. Let your body soften into whatever surface supports you. Notice the simple rhythm of your breathing, the way air enters without effort and leaves without struggle. You do not need to control it. You do not need to improve it. Just let it move as it always has. The stories you will hear tonight are not instructions to force yourself into change. They are footprints, signs left by those who walked before us. Each story reveals a different way the path becomes visible, through dissatisfaction, through beauty, through loss, through courage. The seeker in the 10 Bulls does not begin with certainty. He begins with confusion. He does not know what he is looking for. He only knows that something is missing. This is how awakening often begins. Not with a grand revelation, but with a small crack in the surface of ordinary life. A moment when the familiar no longer satisfies. A glimpse of someone who carries themselves with a stillness we do not yet possess. We see a person at ease in circumstances that would trouble us. We overhear a phrase that lingers in the mind. We encounter a quiet presence that makes our own restlessness more visible. These are footprints. They tell us that peace is possible. They show us that someone has walked ahead and found something real. Zen teaches that awakening is not usually a sudden explosion of light. It is often a gradual dawning, a slow realization that what we seek has been here all along, waiting beneath our constant striving. The ancient masters said that the truth is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When we stop insisting that reality be different than it is, we begin to see clearly. When we stop arguing with what is already happening, something relaxes. The world softens, the mind loosens its grip. But most of us do not begin in relaxation. We begin in tension. We begin in the busy marketplace of our own thoughts, calculating, planning, replaying conversations, anticipating futures that may never arrive. And yet somewhere in the noise, a quiet noticing occurs, a footprint in the dust. Perhaps it appears through another person, someone who smiles at nothing in particular. Someone who moves slowly through a chaotic world without being disturbed by it. Perhaps it appears through nature the way a tree bends under snow and does not break, the way water flows around stone without resistance. Perhaps it appears through suffering when success fails to satisfy, when loss strips away what we thought was permanent, when the life we built no longer feels like home. Each of these moments is not random. Each is a sign. The path does not shout, it whispers. And tonight, we will learn to listen. You do not need to force understanding. Simply let the stories unfold. Let them move through you the way wind moves through tall grass, gently without resistance. The seeker saw footprints and knew he was not alone. And you are not alone either. Others have walked this way. Others have questioned, doubted, suffered, and discovered. The path is patient. It does not disappear because we ignored it yesterday. It waits, and perhaps right now you're ready to see the first sign. Take one slow breath, and let us begin walking together. There is a moment in every seeker's life when something subtle begins to turn. It may not look dramatic from the outside. Nothing collapses. No lightning splits the sky. The world continues exactly as it did the day before. And yet inside something shifts its direction. What once felt solid begins to feel uncertain. What once felt sufficient begins to feel incomplete. The Buddha spoke of this as the turning of the mind. For years, perhaps decades, we have been facing outward. We look toward achievement, toward recognition, toward accumulation. We measure our progress by what we gain, what we build, what others see when they look at us. And for a time, this outward movement seems natural, necessary even. But slowly, quietly, something does not add up. We reach a goal and feel only a brief flicker of satisfaction before the next goal appears. We acquire comfort and security, yet the restlessness remains. We surround ourselves with noise and activity, yet in the silent hours something hollow echoes within us. This is not failure. It is awakening beginning to stir. The mind that once ran unquestioned begins to question itself. We notice how rarely we are actually present, how often our bodies are here while our thoughts are elsewhere, replaying yesterday, anticipating tomorrow, constructing stories that never quite resolve. We begin to see the endless movement of the mind, and for the first time, instead of being completely carried by it, we observe it. This observation is another footprint. Zen teaches that awareness itself is the beginning of freedom. Not controlling the mind, not forcing silence, not achieving some perfect state. Simply noticing. Notice how thoughts arise without being invited. Notice how emotions surge and fade. Notice how quickly the mind wants to grasp what is pleasant and resist what is uncomfortable. For years, we believed we were those movements. Now we begin to see them as movements happening within us, like clouds crossing a wide sky. The sky does not fight the clouds. It does not chase them. It does not cling to them. It simply allows. In this allowing, something remarkable becomes visible. Peace was never absent. It was simply obscured by constant engagement. The 10 Bulls teaching shows the seeker first discovering the tracks of the ox, the symbol of true nature. At this stage, the ox itself is not yet visible, only signs. Likewise, we may not yet feel stable peace. We may not yet understand fully what awakening means. But we see signs. A brief moment of presence while washing dishes, a breath taken without hurry, a pause before reacting in anger, a simple appreciation of light through a window. These are not small things. They are openings. And once we begin to notice them, something else happens. We realize that the path is not somewhere else. It is not waiting in a distant monastery or hidden behind complicated rituals. It is woven into the fabric of this very life. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to listen. Every frustration becomes an opportunity to observe resistance. Every loss becomes an opportunity to understand impermanence. The world does not need to change for the path to appear. Only our way of seeing. The Buddha described suffering not as punishment but as misunderstanding. We suffer because we expect permanence in a changing world. We suffer because we cling to what is already moving away. We suffer because we imagine that peace must look different than this moment. But when the mind begins to turn, we question these assumptions. What if nothing is wrong with this moment? What if the discomfort we feel is not evidence of failure, but evidence that we are resisting what already is? What if peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the absence of struggle against difficulty? These questions soften the edges of experience. We begin to experiment. Instead of immediately fixing, we observe. Instead of immediately reacting, we pause. Instead of immediately escaping, we stay. And in staying, we discover something extraordinary. The moment does not collapse when we stop fighting it. It opens. This opening is gentle. It is quiet. It may last only seconds at first, but it is unmistakable. A sense of being grounded, a sense of nothing missing, a sense that right now, exactly as it is, this is enough. The more we return to this simple noticing, the more natural it becomes, not because we have mastered anything, but because we are remembering something. Remembering that awareness has always been here. Remembering that peace was never constructed, only uncovered. The seeker in the 10 bulls continues walking after seeing the footprints. He does not yet possess the ox. He does not yet understand the full path, but he trusts what he has seen. And trust grows not from blind belief, but from small confirmations. Each time we return to the breath, we confirm that presence is possible. Each time we allow a feeling to pass without chasing or resisting it, we confirm that we are not imprisoned by it. Each time we soften instead of tightening, we confirm that another way of living is available. This is how the path becomes real, not through grand experiences, but through repeated returning again and again and again. Let your body rest now. Feel the surface beneath you. Feel the gentle weight of your limbs. Feel the breath moving without your effort. Nothing needs to be improved in this moment. Nothing needs to be solved. The turning has already begun. You have seen the footprints, and even if you do not yet see the full path, that is enough. The ox may still be hidden in the tall grass, but the signs are clear. Peace is not far away. It is near. It is findable, and you are already walking. In a busy market town where traders arrived from distant provinces, there lived a cloth merchant named Lero. For more than 20 years, he had built his reputation through sharp judgment and tireless effort. He could assess the quality of silk by touch alone. He could sense a profitable bargain before others even noticed opportunity was present. His shop was always full. His storage rooms were always stocked. His accounts were always carefully balanced. By every visible measure, Lero was successful. His home was comfortable. His family lacked nothing. His name was respected in the marketplace. And yet Lero was not at peace. His body might rest at night, but his mind did not. When he lay down beside his wife, thoughts continued their endless trade. Calculations rose and fell. Profits were measured, risks were evaluated. Imaginary conversations replayed themselves again and again. If a shipment were delayed, what would happen? If a rival lowered prices, how should he respond? If the coming season proved poor, how would he adjust? His mind was its own marketplace, crowded, noisy, restless. At dinner, his children would speak to him and he would nod, but his eyes drifted somewhere beyond the room. His wife would pause mid-sentence when she realized he was not fully listening. He loved them, of that he had no doubt. But he was rarely present with them. He told himself this was responsibility. This was what it meant to provide. This was what it meant to be serious in a serious world. The tightness in his chest, the constant hum beneath his thoughts, these were simply the cost of success. He had seen his father carry the same tension. He assumed his sons would carry it after him. One morning, as Lero arranged bolts of fabric outside his shop, smoothing the rich dyes into neat folds, he noticed an old woman moving slowly through the market. There was nothing remarkable about her clothing. She wore simple hemp, undyed and practical. She carried a woven basket on her arm. And yet something drew his attention. She had stopped at a vegetable stall and was examining radishes. Not hurriedly, not distractedly. She turned each one gently in her hands, lifting it toward the light as if she were holding something precious. And she was smiling. Not a polite smile, not a social smile, but a quiet, inward smile that seemed to arise from somewhere deep within her. The market around her was loud. Merchants shouted prices, children ran between stalls, carts rattled over stone, voices rose and collided in constant negotiation. Yet she seemed untouched by the noise. It was not that she resisted it. It was not that she withdrew from it. She was simply there, still, complete, present. The chaos flowed around her like water around a stone. Lero found himself staring. He had seen wealthy patrons enter the market draped in silk, attended by servants, and even they carried impatience in their eyes. He had known merchants more prosperous than himself who spoke constantly of expansion and competition, their shoulders tight, their movements sharp. But this old woman holding a simple radish seemed to possess something none of them had. Ease. She completed her purchase and exchanged a few words with the vendor. They laughed together softly, genuinely. Then she moved on, disappearing into the crowd. Lero returned to his work, but throughout the day his mind returned to her. Not as a problem to solve, not as a business calculation, but as a question. How is such ease possible? Over the next weeks, he began noticing her whenever she appeared in the market. She came every few days, always unhurried. She examined fruit with full attention. She paused beside the fountain and watched the movement of people, as if it were the most fascinating sight in the world. There was no tension in her shoulders, no urgency in her step. It was as if she lived in a different rhythm than everyone else. Something in Lero began to ache. Not envy, not resentment, longing. One morning, without fully planning it, he left his assistant in charge of the shop and approached the stone bench where she sat resting. His heart beat faster than it had during any negotiation. He felt foolish, a successful merchant about to ask a stranger about peace. The woman looked up at him with clear, steady eyes. She did not seem surprised. "Forgive me," Lero said, his voice rougher than intended. "I have watched you in this market. You seem untroubled, at ease." I have worked hard all my life. I have achieved what I set out to achieve. Yet I have never felt what I see in you. How is this possible? The old woman smiled. There is no secret, she said gently. Or perhaps the secret is so simple that no one believes it. She patted the bench beside her. Lero sat. The stone felt cool beneath him. For a moment, neither spoke. The market roared around them. Do you hear the noise? She asked quietly. He listened. The calls of vendors, the clatter of wheels, the bargaining voices rising and falling. Yes, he said. Just hear it, she replied. Do not fix it. Do not judge it. Do not make it into a problem. Let the sound be sound. Lero tried. Immediately, his mind began categorizing. That voice belongs to the fish seller. That cart should move aside. That argument will delay the flow of customers. He caught himself. He returned to simply listening. For a brief moment, just a flicker. The sounds were not tasks or obstacles. They were simply sounds, life happening. Something loosened in his chest. The woman nodded almost imperceptibly. There, she said. That small space. When you are simply here without adding anything, that is the beginning. Lero swallowed. It lasted only a moment. She smiled again. A moment is enough to show you what is possible. Lero sat beside the old woman longer than he had intended. The market did not quiet for them. No miracle occurred. No sudden silence descended from the sky. The same shouts rose and fell. The same carts rattled past. The same negotiations unfolded in animated tones. Yet something inside him had shifted, not dramatically, but undeniably. You say that moment is the beginning, Lero said slowly. But my mind will not stay still. Even now it wants to return to my shop. It tells me I am wasting time. The woman nodded. Of course it does. You have trained it well. Trained it for years, you have rewarded it for worrying. You have praised it for calculating. You have depended on it for survival and success. It believes its job is to protect you by never resting. She turned slightly toward him. And it has done its job faithfully. Lero felt a strange mixture of relief and discomfort. He had always blamed himself for his restlessness or justified it as necessary. He had never considered that his mind was simply following instructions. How do I retrain it? He asked. You do not fight it, she said. You do not command it to stop. You simply stop obeying it every time it speaks. She gestured toward the movement of people before them. When a voice in your mind says, "This noise is a problem," you notice the voice. You do not argue with it. You do not suppress it. You simply see it as a voice, and then you return. To what is actually here? She picked up her basket and placed it between them. Feel the stone beneath you, she said softly. Lero shifted slightly and noticed the cool firmness pressing through his clothing. Feel your feet inside your shoes. He had never thought about his feet while sitting in the market. He became aware of their weight, the slight pressure against the ground. Feel the air enter in your body. He inhaled. For the first time that morning, he felt the breath as sensation rather than function. This is returning, she said. Lero noticed how quickly his mind tried to comment. This is foolish. This is impractical. I should be working. He saw the thoughts. He did not chase them. They passed. Another breath. The noise continued, but it no longer felt like an attack. It felt distant. Not removed, but less personal. You see, the woman continued. Peace. is not created, it is uncovered. When you stop feeding every thought, the mind settles on its own, the way muddy water clears when it is left undisturbed. Lero looked at her carefully. "Have you always lived this way?" She laughed softly. "No, I was once as busy as you. I believed my value came from what I accomplished. I believed rest was laziness. I believed peace would come after I had secured enough. And did it?" She shook her head gently. There was never enough. The simplicity of her words struck him more deeply than any elaborate teaching could have. There was never enough. He felt the truth of it in his own life. Every achievement had only led to the next. Every milestone had quickly faded into new concern. "When did you change?" he asked. "I became tired," she said. "Tired of running inside my own thoughts. Tired of postponing peace until conditions were perfect. One day I simply stopped arguing with the moment." She gestured again toward the market. "The noise was here. I stopped wishing it away. The heat was here. I stopped resenting it. The ache in my knees was here. I stopped resisting it, and something softened." Lero closed his eyes briefly. He noticed the heat of the day against his face, the faint soreness in his back from lifting fabric earlier, the rhythm of breath moving in and out. These sensations had always been present. He had simply been too busy to feel them. "What if I lose my edge?" he asked quietly. "What if being present makes me less sharp, less competitive?" The woman smiled. "Presence does not dull you. It clarifies you. When you are not lost in imagined futures, you see what is actually happening. When you are not distracted by unnecessary worry, you respond more cleanly." She looked at him steadily. "You think tension makes you strong, but tension exhausts you. Presence strengthens without strain." The words settled into him like seeds finding soil. He realized that even this conversation felt different from most of his interactions. He was not planning his next sentence while she spoke. He was not scanning for advantage. He was simply listening, and listening felt strangely restful. "How do I continue?" he asked at last. "Begin small," she replied. "When you open your shop tomorrow, notice the texture of the cloth in your hands. When a customer speaks, listen fully before answering. When a worry arises, pause before following it." She stood slowly, lifting her basket. "You do not need to abandon your life. You only need to enter it fully." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing," she added gently. "Do not expect perfection. The mind will wander again and again. Each time you notice and return, you strengthen the path. Each return is a footprint." She walked back into the flow of the market. Lero remained on the bench. The noise was still loud. The day was still busy. His shop still required attention. Nothing external had changed. And yet something had, undeniably, begun. He rose and walked back to his stall. As he lifted a bolt of silk, he felt the smoothness beneath his fingers. As a customer spoke, he listened not while calculating, but while hearing. His mind still raced at times. But now occasionally, he noticed it racing. And in that, noticing a small space appeared. That evening, as he lay beside his wife, thoughts began their usual march. But he remembered the bench. He remembered the sound of the market without commentary. He felt the breath moving in and out. For a few brief moments there was quiet. Not perfect silence, not permanent stillness, but enough. He did not yet possess peace. He had only glimpsed it. But the glimpse was real. And once something real is seen, it cannot be entirely unseen. The first footprints had been discovered. Now the walking had begun. Change did not arrive in Lero's life like a storm. It came quietly, so quietly, that at first he almost doubted it was happening at all. The morning after speaking with the old woman, he opened his shop as he always did. He unrolled fabrics, arranged colors in pleasing order, greeted early customers with practiced efficiency. The habits of 20 years did not disappear overnight. His mind still leapt toward calculation, still scanned for risk, still anticipated future shortages and imagined conflicts. But something new accompanied these movements. He saw them. He would be midway through a worry, imagining a shipment delayed by storms, and suddenly remember the bench, the radishes, the sound of the market as pure sound. He would pause. Not long, just long enough to feel his breath. Just long enough to sense the ground beneath his feet. The thought did not vanish, but it loosened. And that loosening was different from anything he had known. At first he forgot more often than he remembered. Entire hours would pass before he realized he had been lost again in his usual mental trade. But instead of criticizing himself, he recalled the woman's words. Each return is a footprint. So he returned, again and again. One afternoon, a difficult customer entered the shop. The man was known in the market for aggressive bargaining and sharp words. In the past, Lero would have met him with equal sharpness, tightening, defending, preparing counter-arguments before the man had finished speaking. As the customer began his usual complaints about pricing, Lero felt the familiar tightening in his chest. The impulse to defend, the surge of irritation, and then a flicker of awareness. He noticed the tightening. He did not immediately act from it. He felt his breath once, just once. The customer continued speaking. For the first time in years, Lero truly listened, not to prepare his next move, but simply to hear what was being said. Something surprising happened. The man's tone softened. Without the usual tension meeting him head-on, the conflict had nowhere to land. The negotiation still occurred. Money was still discussed, but the sharp edge was gone. When the man left, Lero stood in quiet astonishment. He had not forced patience. He had not pretended calm. He had simply paused, and the entire interaction had shifted. This small event stayed with him for days. It was not dramatic. No one in the market would have called it transformation. But to Lero, it was evidence. Presence was not weakness. It was strength without aggression. Another change appeared at home. That evening, as his daughter spoke excitedly about a small success at school, he felt the familiar pull of distraction. Thoughts about inventory, about next week's supply order. He noticed the pull, and instead of following it, he looked directly at her. He saw the way her eyes shone, the way her hands moved when she spoke. He heard the subtle tremor of pride in her voice. A warmth spread through his chest, not the tight heat of anxiety, but something softer. Connection. Later that night, he realized something almost shocking. He could not remember what she had said in detail, but he remembered being there, fully. For years, he had remembered facts and forgotten moments. Now the moment itself felt more important than the content. Sleep did not become perfect overnight. There were still restless evenings, still waves of thought that carried him far from the present. But sometimes, just sometimes, he would feel the breath. He would sense the mattress beneath him. He would hear the faint sound of wind outside the window. And instead of fighting wakefulness, he would simply lie there, without adding frustration, without demanding sleep come faster, often without noticing when sleep would arrive on its own. Weeks passed. The market remained loud. His responsibilities remained real. But the inner marketplace began to lose its tyranny. Thoughts still came, worries still arose, but they no longer felt like commands. They felt like movements passing through a wider space. One morning, as he watched the old woman once again selecting vegetables, he realized something else had changed. He no longer watched her with longing. He watched her with recognition. The stillness he had admired in her was no longer foreign. It was faint within him, fragile, incomplete, but present. He approached her again. "You were right," he said simply. She tilted her head slightly. "I do not feel peaceful all the time," he continued. "But I see the space now. I see the moment before I react. I see the breath before I follow a thought. It is small, but it is real." The old woman smiled. "That is how the ox first appears," she said. Lero frowned slightly. The ox. In the old teaching, she explained, the seeker first sees footprints. Then one day he catches a glimpse of the ox itself, perhaps only its tail disappearing into tall grass. He does not yet possess it, but he knows it is real. Lero felt a quiet understanding settle in him. He had seen the tail. He had not yet mastered his mind. He had not yet found unshakable peace, but he had glimpsed something undeniable. And that glimpse changed everything. He bowed slightly to the old woman. "I thought peace would mean leaving my life," he said. "But I see now it means entering it fully." She nodded. "Exactly." As she walked away, Lero returned to his shop with steady steps. The bolts of silk waited. The customers would come. The market would roar. But beneath the noise, beneath the activity, there was something new. A growing trust. The path was real. Not because someone told him so, but because he had begun to walk it. And each return, each breath, each pause, each moment of simple presence pressed another footprint into the ground beneath him. The journey had only just begun, but it had truly begun. Lero's journey began with a person, a living example, a quiet presence in the middle of noise, but the path does not reveal itself in only one way. Sometimes it appears through silence, sometimes through stillness, and sometimes unexpectedly through words overheard in passing. Not formal teachings, not carefully arranged instruction, just a sentence carried on the wind, a phrase that lodges in the heart, a conversation not meant for us, yet somehow meant exactly for us. The Buddha often spoke of seeds. A single teaching heard once may seem small. It may not fully make sense. It may not immediately change the direction of a life, but it enters the soil of the mind. And when conditions are right, it sprouts. Lero saw peace embodied. Others encounter it differently. They hear something, a metaphor, a comparison, a simple image that rearranges their understanding of themselves. They do not yet know how to practice. They do not yet know where the path leads. But something within them recognizes truth, and recognition is enough to begin. The footprints are not always visible in dust. Sometimes they are carried in language. Sometimes they are hidden in an ordinary exchange between two strangers spoken without ceremony, yet powerful enough to alter a life. Let us now turn to another story, a story of a young rope maker named Suki, who was not looking for the path at all, and yet the path found her. In a smaller town where the river curved gently past rows of ancient willow trees, there lived a young rope maker named Suki. Her days were steady and repetitive. Each morning she sat outside her workshop, twisting fibers into cord. Her fingers moving in patterns she had learned from her mother, who had learned them from hers. The rhythm of the work was reliable, twist-pull-tighten wind. The fishermen relied on her ropes. Farmers tied their bundles with her cord. Merchants secured their carts with knots she had carefully braided. Her craft was good, her income modest but sufficient, her small house by the river clean and orderly. By most standards, her life was peaceful, and yet beneath the steady rhythm of her hands, something restless stirred. In the quiet evenings when the light faded and the river reflected the darkening sky, Suki would stand at the water's edge and feel a subtle ache in her chest. Not sorrow, not dissatisfaction exactly, but a sense that something unnamed was missing. She could not explain it. There was no obvious flaw in her life. Still, when she watched the river move endlessly toward a horizon she could not see, she felt as though she too were meant to move toward something, though she did not know what. She told herself it would pass. Everyone felt restless sometimes. This was simply the human condition. And so she returned each day to her ropes. Twist, pull, tighten, wind. One evening, a group of travelers arrived at the small inn across from her workshop. They had come from the northern mountains and were continuing south toward the coast. Suki paid them little attention at first. Travelers were common enough. But that night, as she sat on her porch mending a frayed section of cord in the fading light, voices drifted through the open windows of the inn. Two men were speaking quietly. One voice was young and urgent. "How can anyone find peace in a world like this?" the younger voice asked. "Every day brings new trouble. We work and worry and strive, and still, nothing feels secure. Even when things go well, I fear they will not last." There was a pause. Then an older voice replied, calm and measured. "The trouble is not the problem." Suki's hand slowed. "The trouble is not the problem," the younger man repeated. "No," the older voice said. "Rain falls, crops fail, markets rise and fall, bodies grow old. These things are not the source of disturbance. They are simply the nature of life." "Then what is the source?" "The resistance," the older man answered. "The belief that things should be other than they are." Suki felt something inside her tighten. The belief that things should be other than they are. The older voice continued. "The Buddha once compared the mind to a lake. When the wind blows, waves appear on the surface. When the wind is strong, the water churns and becomes cloudy. When the wind settles, the lake becomes still and clear again." "And we are to stop the wind?" the younger man asked. The older voice gave a quiet laugh. "We cannot stop the wind. The wind will blow when it blows. But we can learn not to add to it. We can learn not to stir the water with our own fear and resistance." There was silence for a moment. "You are not the waves," the older voice continued softly. "You are the water itself. When you know this deeply, the waves may still rise, but they do not disturb your depths." Suki had stopped mending altogether. The rope lay across her lap, forgotten. "You are not the waves. You are the water itself." The words moved through her like something remembered rather than newly learned. She did not fully understand them. She could not have explained them clearly. But they felt true. That night she lay awake, not with anxiety, but with a different kind of wakefulness. She began to notice her thoughts.
When she imagined the future, planning how many ropes she must sell to remain secure, was that a wave? When she replayed a minor argument with a supplier, was that a wave? When she felt the familiar ache of restlessness by the river, was that also a wave? If these were waves, what was the water? In the days that followed, Suki continued her work as usual, but something had changed. As she twisted fibers together, she watched her mind. A thought would arise. I must work faster. Others may take my customers. What if business slows next season instead of immediately believing the thought? She paused. Wave. The thought did not disappear, but it felt lighter, less absolute. Another thought would come. I should have traveled like those men. Perhaps I'm wasting my life here. Wave. She did not try to suppress it. She did not chase it. She simply noticed. Sometimes the waves were strong. Sometimes they carried her away for hours before she remembered the metaphor. But occasionally, just occasionally, there was a moment when the surface felt still. The fibers in her hands, the smell of river air, the sound of wind moving through willow branches. Nothing missing, nothing needing correction. Just this, the lake settling on its own. She realized that her restlessness had not come from her circumstances. It had come from believing that the circumstances should be different. When she imagined herself elsewhere, she stirred the water. When she resisted the present moment, she stirred the water. But when she simply worked, twist, pull, tighten, wind, and allowed the moment to be exactly as it was, the waves softened. One evening she returned to the river. She watched its surface ripple under a light breeze. She noticed how the deeper current moved steadily beneath. For the first time, she did not feel the ache of needing to be somewhere else. The river was moving. She was standing. Both were part of the same flow. The footprints had appeared, not through a teacher sitting before her, but through words overheard in passing. A metaphor had become a doorway. She did not yet know where it would lead, but she knew this much. She had seen something true. And once truth is glimpsed, the search is no longer blind. Understanding a metaphor in calm weather is one thing. Living it when the storm arrives is another. Late in the summer, heavy rains fell for days without pause. The gentle river that had always curved peacefully past Suki's home began to swell. Its surface darkened. Its current thickened with uprooted branches and drifting debris. On the third night of rain, the water rose high enough to flood the lower paths near the shore. By morning, several storage sheds by the riverbank had been damaged, including the small structure where Suki kept bundles of finished rope waiting to be sold. She stood ankle-deep in water, staring at soaked coils of cord unraveling in the current. Her chest tightened. Weeks of work, gone. The familiar voice rose immediately. "This is terrible. You will lose customers. You should have prepared better. You should have stored everything higher." The waves came fast, hard, relentless. Her breath grew shallow. Her shoulders lifted toward her ears. For a moment, the metaphor seemed foolish. You are not the waves. How could she not be the waves when they crashed so violently inside her? The river roared beside her as if mocking the calm she had imagined only days before. But somewhere beneath the surge of fear, another memory stirred. The older traveler's voice. "You cannot stop the wind, but you can stop adding to it." Suki closed her eyes. Not to escape, not to deny the damage, but to feel. Water against her skin, rain on her hair, the pounding of her heart. Wave. Another thought surged.
I will fail. Wave. Another. I should have done more. Wave. The storm inside her did not disappear, but something subtle shifted. Instead of being entirely consumed by the fear, she noticed it. She felt it as sensation, heat in the chest, tightening in the throat, trembling in the hands. Not a prophecy, not a final truth, just movement. The rain continued, the river continued, but gradually as she stood there breathing, the intensity lessened. Not because the situation improved. Nothing had changed externally, but because she had stopped fighting the fact that it had happened. Loss had occurred, water had risen, ropes had been ruined. Reality did not require argument. She opened her eyes. The damage was real, but so was the ground beneath her feet. So was the breath moving steadily through her body. The lake had been stirred, but beneath the surface, something deeper remained intact. She spent the day salvaging what she could. Some bundles were beyond saving, others could be dried and repaired. Each time worry surged, she named it softly inside. Wave. Each time, self-blame appeared. Wave. By evening, exhaustion settled into her limbs. She sat by the river once more. The rain had stopped. Clouds thinned, revealing faint streaks of fading light. The river still moved swiftly, but its violence had lessened. She watched the surface, ripples passing, foam drifting, and she understood something she had not understood before. The lake is not calm because nothing happens. The lake is calm because it does not cling to what passes across it. Storms come, storms go. The water remains water. Tears rose unexpectedly in her eyes. Not from despair, but from relief. She had believed that peace meant preventing difficulty. Now she saw that peace meant meeting difficulty without losing herself inside it. The loss still mattered. She would need to work harder in the coming weeks. She might earn less for a time. But beneath these practical concerns, a deeper steadiness had formed. The waves had risen strongly, and she had not drowned in them. That night, as she lay listening to the quieter flow of the river, she felt something new. Confidence. Not confidence in outcomes, not confidence that storms would never return, but confidence in her capacity to remain aware within them. The metaphor had moved from idea to experience. She no longer repeated the phrase merely because it sounded wise. She had felt the storm. She had felt the settling. And in that settling, she glimpsed the depth beneath the surface. The path was no longer only a poetic image carried by someone else's voice. It had become something lived, a footprint pressed firmly into wet ground. And from that imprint, a quiet resolve emerged. Whatever winds may come, she would learn to rest as water. In the weeks after the flood, Suki worked steadily to rebuild what had been lost. She rose earlier. She dried salvaged fibers in the morning sun. She rewove damaged strands with patient hands. Outwardly, her life looked much the same as before. But inwardly, something fundamental had shifted. Before the storm calm had felt fragile, something that appeared only when conditions were gentle. A quiet evening, a slow afternoon, a peaceful stretch of river beneath an open sky. Now she understood that calm was not dependent on the absence of disturbance. It was dependent on depth. One afternoon, as she worked near the riverbank, she noticed children playing in the shallows. They splashed and shrieked, sending water in every direction. The surface broke into countless ripples. Yet farther out beyond their reach, the river moved in long, smooth currents. The contrast struck her clearly. Near the edge, agitation. In the center, steadiness. Her thoughts were like those splashing children, quick, loud, unpredictable. But awareness itself, the simple capacity to notice, was like the deeper current, unaffected, continuous. This realization did not remove difficulty from her life. There were still days when fatigue pressed heavily against her bones, still evenings when anxiety whispered about the future. But she no longer mistook these movements for her identity. When fear arose, she felt it. When discouragement appeared, she acknowledged it. Wave. Then she returned not to force calm, but to feel what was present beneath the surface. Breath moving, hands working, sunlight warming her shoulders. Gradually, the returns became more natural. She did not need to name every thought anymore. She did not need to remind herself constantly of the metaphor. Awareness itself had become more familiar. It was like discovering a room in her own house she had never entered before. The room had always been there. She had simply lived in the narrow hallway of her thoughts. Now, when agitation stirred, she stepped back into that wider room. Not as escape, not as denial, but as perspective. One evening, the younger traveler returned to town, alone. He recognized Suki from the porch where she had once been mending rope. They spoke briefly, and he mentioned that the older man had continued south. "I still struggle," the traveler admitted. "My mind is rarely quiet." Suki smiled softly. "The lake is rarely without waves," she replied, "but it does not lose its depth." He looked at her curiously. "You speak as though you understand this now. I do not understand it completely," she said honestly, "but I have felt it, and feeling is enough to continue." After he left, she sat once more by the river. The sky was clear, the current steady. She closed her eyes and listened not only to the water but to the space in which the sound appeared. She noticed that awareness itself did not strain. It did not resist. It did not demand anything. It simply allowed. For a brief, luminous moment, even the sense of being a separate observer softened. There was just sound, just sensation, just presence. No need to improve it. No need to secure it. The depth was not something she created. It was what remained when she stopped stirring the surface. The 10 Bulls teaching speaks of glimpsing the ox clearly for the first time. Not just its tail, not just distant tracks, but its living form standing before the seeker. Suki had not yet tamed the ox. She had not yet mastered her mind. But she had seen that beneath the waves something vast and steady existed, and that recognition changed how she walked through each day. When customers complained, she listened. When profits fluctuated, she adjusted. When fatigue came, she rested. The surface continued to move, but the depth remained. And in that depth, she found something she had once searched for along the horizon of the river. Not excitement, not escape, but quiet belonging. The path had not taken her away from her life. It had revealed the life already here.
The lake did not need to become something else. It only needed to be known, and once known, it could never be entirely forgotten. Some discover the path through stillness, some through metaphor, some through loss, and some through misunderstanding. For sometimes we do not suffer because of storms or noise, but because we tie ourselves into knots and forget that we were the ones who tied them. Let us now turn to another story. A story of a monk who believed discipline alone would free him, until he learned the difference between holding firmly and holding too tightly.
In a hillside monastery overlooking terraced fields of barley, there lived a young monk named Ren. Ren had entered the monastery at 19, driven by a fierce determination to awaken. While others arrived, gently unsure and exploratory, Ren arrived with intensity. He did not wish merely to understand the teachings, he wished to master them. He woke before the morning bell. He meditated longer than required. He memorized sutras with precision and corrected others when they recited imperfectly. His posture was flawless, his discipline unwavering, and yet, Ren was not at peace. During meditation, he clenched inwardly. When thoughts arose, he pushed against them. When emotions surfaced, he judged them as obstacles. When discomfort appeared in his knees, he endured it with tight resolve, believing endurance itself was virtue. Other monks sometimes glanced at him with quiet concern. They sensed his strain, but Ren mistook their softness for weakness. If awakening required effort, he would out-effort them all. One autumn afternoon, the abbot invited Ren to walk along the outer path of the monastery grounds. The wind moved gently across the barley fields, bending the stalks in slow waves. "Your dedication is admirable," the abbot said calmly. Ren bowed slightly. "I only wish to awaken quickly, Master." "And what is awakening, Ren?" Answered without hesitation. "Freedom from distraction, freedom from desire, freedom from suffering." The abbot nodded. "And how will you achieve this freedom?" "Through discipline, through control of the mind." They walked in silence for several moments. Then the abbot stopped and held out his hand. "Clench your fist," he instructed. Ren complied, curling his fingers tightly into his palm. "Stronger," the abbot said. Ren tightened further. His knuckles whitened. "Hold it," the abbot continued. Seconds passed, then a minute. A subtle tremor began in Ren's forearm. "Is your fist strong?" the abbot asked. "Yes," Ren replied through controlled breath. "Is it relaxed?" "No." "Is it sustainable?" Ren did not answer immediately. The strain was building. Finally, he said, "Not indefinitely." The abbot waited. Sweat gathered at Ren's brow. His arm began to shake visibly. Now the abbot said gently, "Open your hand." Ren released his fist. Blood rushed back through his fingers. Sensation returned with tingling warmth. "Which required more wisdom?" the abbot asked. Clenching or releasing, Ren lowered his hand slowly. "I thought strength meant holding tightly," he admitted. The abbot smiled. "Many do. But clenching is easy. Releasing requires understanding." They resumed walking. "When you meditate," the abbot continued, "you are clenching. When thoughts arise, you fight them. When discomfort appears, you harden against it. You believe awakening is achieved through force." Ren felt heat rise in his chest, defensiveness quickly recognized. Wave. He had heard that metaphor from an older monk weeks earlier, but dismissed it. Now he noticed the tightening. He did not argue. The abbot gestured toward the barley fields. "Observe the wind," he said. "The stalks bend, they do not resist. If they stood rigid, they would break." Ren watched the golden waves ripple across the field. "They are not weak," the abbot added. "They are responsive," Ren swallowed. In meditation, he had believed responsiveness was failure. If a thought distracted him, he scolded himself. If his mind wandered, he intensified effort. But what if effort itself was the wind stirring the lake? "What should I do differently?" Ren asked quietly. "Sit," the abbot said. "And when a thought comes, do not punch it away. Do not tighten. Simply notice it. Let it rise, let it pass. That sounds passive. It is. Attentive, the abbot corrected. There is a difference. They reached a stone bench beneath an old pine tree. Sit now, the abbot instructed. Ren folded into meditation posture. The wind brushed against his robe. Immediately, thoughts appeared. I must do this correctly. I must not fail. I must show improvement. He felt the impulse to clamp down. Instead, he remembered the fist. He loosened not his posture, but his inner grip. Thought. Not enemy, not obstacle, just movement. Another thought. Memory of childhood. Wave. He allowed it to pass without pursuit. The experience was unfamiliar. Without force, the mind did not become perfectly still, but it also did not become chaotic. It moved, and beneath the movement, there was space. The abbot's voice came softly. Awakening is not achieved by crushing the mind. It is realized when the mind is understood. Ren breathed. For the first time in years of practice, meditation felt less like battle, more like listening. The fist had opened, not completely, not permanently, but enough to reveal that strength without softness was strain, and strain was not freedom. As the sun lowered over the fields, casting long shadows across the monastery walls, Ren felt a subtle easing within his chest. He had believed awakening required heroic tension. Now he glimpsed another possibility, that the path might be walked not with clenched resolve, but with steady openness. The ox, he realized, would not be captured by force. It would approach only when the hand was relaxed. The morning after his walk with the abbot, Ren entered the meditation hall with a different intention. Not to conquer the mind, not to defeat distraction, but to observe. He folded his legs beneath him and straightened his spine as he always had. The hall was quiet except for the faint rustle of robes and the distant sound of wind brushing the eaves. Almost immediately, thoughts began to move. You must do this correctly. Do not waste this opportunity. Prove that you understand. The old habit rose quickly. The urge to clamp down, to tighten his inner fist around the mind and squeeze until silence emerged. He felt the tightening begin in his jaw, in his shoulders, in the small muscles around his eyes. And he remembered the barley, bending in the wind. Slowly, deliberately, he softened his jaw, let his shoulders drop, allowed the muscles around his eyes to rest. The thoughts did not vanish, but the resistance to them loosened. He noticed something subtle when he fought a thought. It multiplied. When he allowed it to pass without engagement, it weakened on its own. A memory arose of a childhood embarrassment. Previously, he would have scolded himself for being distracted. Now he simply labeled it gently inside, thinking. The memory shifted, faded. Another thought came. You are improving. Even this he noticed. Thinking. He almost smiled. For years he had divided experience into success and failure. Clear meditation was good. Busy meditation was bad. Calm was progress. Restlessness was regression. But now he saw that this division itself was tension. Each judgment tightened the fist. The discipline of softness, he began to understand, was not laziness. It required alertness. It required honesty. It required staying present without interference. Midway through the sitting period, discomfort bloomed in his knees. Pain had always been his secret battlefield. He endured it with rigid pride, believing endurance was proof of commitment. Now he observed the sensation carefully. Heat, pressure, pulsing. Without the label pain, it was simply shifting sensation. Wave. When he did not lay a resistance on top of it, the sensation changed. It intensified briefly, then softened, then moved. He realized that much of his suffering had come not from the sensation itself, but from the story about it. This should not be happening. I cannot tolerate this. This is in the way of awakening. Those thoughts had been the true tightening. The bell rang softly, signaling the end of meditation. Ren unfolded his legs slowly. There was stiffness, yes, but there was also a quiet clarity. Later that day, while sweeping fallen leaves from the courtyard, he noticed another pattern. When a leaf drifted back onto the ground he had just cleared, irritation flickered. Pointless. You just cleaned that space. He paused. The leaf did not know his plans. The wind did not care about his efficiency. Wave. He continued sweeping, not as an act of control, but as participation. The courtyard did not need to remain perfectly clear. Sweeping was simply what was happening now. In the afternoon, he encountered a fellow monk who had once drawn his silent criticism for meditating with a slightly curved spine. Ren watched his own mind begin its old commentary. He should sit straighter. He lacks discipline. Wave. The judgment lost its solidity. He suddenly saw that he had been clenching not only around his own experience, but around others as well, trying to tighten the world into his idea of how it should be. That evening, he returned to the abbot. It feels less heroic, Ren admitted. This softer way. The abbot smiled faintly. Heroism is often ego dressed in virtue, he replied. Softness is quiet. It does not draw attention, but it endures. Ren bowed. I still tighten, he confessed. Many times each day. Of course, the abbot said. Years of clenching will not dissolve in one afternoon, but each time you notice and release, you weaken the habit. He held up his own hand. Try to keep your fist clenched for a month without rest. It cannot be done. The body demands release. The mind is the same. When you stop reinforcing the tension, it relaxes naturally. That night, Ren lay on his thin mat, listening to the faint chorus of crickets beyond the monastery walls. He observed the mind moving, planning tomorrow's tasks, replaying the conversation, imagining future progress. Wave. He did not push. He did not pull. Gradually, without his command, the movement slowed. Not into emptiness, not into blankness, but into ease. He understood then that discipline did not mean tightening endlessly. It meant returning gently, repeatedly, without violence toward oneself. The ox would not be subdued by force. It would walk beside a steady hand. And for the first time since entering the monastery, Ren sensed that awakening might not be something to seize, but something to allow. Some cling to tension, believing it is strength. Some cling to restlessness, believing it is protection. And some cling to burdens long after they are no longer necessary. The path does not only teach us to soften the fist, it also invites us to notice what we are carrying and whether we are willing to set it down. Let us turn now to another story. A story of a traveler who crossed mountains with a heavy pack, unaware that most of its weight was self-imposed. There was once a traveler named Harun who believed that strength was measured by what one could endure. He had crossed dry plains where the sun burned without mercy. He had slept beneath trees bent sideways by relentless wind. He had walked through towns where strangers doubted him and villages where no one knew his name. With each journey, he added something to his pack. At first, these additions were practical. An extra blanket after one cold night left him shivering. An additional knife after a tool once broke at an inconvenient moment. More dried food after a path proved longer than expected. Preparedness, he told himself, was wisdom. But gradually the pack began to hold more than tools. It held reminders. A smooth gray stone his father had pressed into his hand years ago, saying, "Never be weak. Carry your burdens without complaint." A small wooden charm from a former companion who had once told him he tried too hard to prove himself. A bundle of letters from a rival who had mocked his ambitions. Harun kept these items close. They were not merely objects, they were pieces of identity. The stone reminded him to be strong. The charm reminded him never to appear vulnerable. The letters reminded him to strive harder than anyone else. When friends suggested he travel lighter, he smiled dismissively. "You do not know what the road demands," he would say. And perhaps they did not. On this particular journey, Harun was crossing a long mountain pass, known for its steady incline and thin air. The path was not dramatic. There were no sheer cliffs or sudden drops, only a constant upward slope that tested endurance more than courage. At first, he moved with confidence. His boots struck the ground in measured rhythm. His breath remained steady. But as the hours passed, the weight on his back pressed more deeply into his shoulders. The straps carved lines into his skin. His lower back began to pulse with dull ache. He adjusted the pack, tightened the straps. The pressure increased. The more he tightened, the more the load seemed to resist him. By midday, sweat darkened his collar despite the cool mountain air. Other travelers passed him. Some carried smaller packs. Some carried none at all, trusting to inns along the way. Harun felt irritation rise. They are careless, he thought. They are unprepared. Yet as he watched one elderly man climb steadily with only a small satchel, something unsettled him. The old man was not straining. He was not rushing. He walked as though the mountain were not an enemy to conquer, but a path to follow. Harun leaned forward, compensating for the backward pull of his heavy load. The mountain did not grow steeper, but his steps did. Each movement required more force. With every stride, thoughts accumulated. You must not fall behind. You must not appear weak. You must prove you can carry what others cannot. The pack felt heavier with each silent command. Near a wide bend in the trail, Harun finally stopped. His breathing was uneven now. His shoulders burned. He lowered the pack to the ground. The relief was immediate. His spine straightened. His chest expanded fully for the first time in hours. He stood there, stunned by the contrast. The mountain had not changed. The air had not thickened. Only the weight had shifted. He knelt and opened the pack. Inside lay the stone from his father. He lifted it, feeling its familiar solidity in his palm. For years he had believed that carrying this stone honored his father's lesson. But now, standing halfway up a mountain, he wondered whether he had misunderstood. His father had said, "Carry your burdens without complaint." But had he meant carry them forever? Had he meant carry them even when they were no longer needed? Harun turned the stone over in his hand. The mountain did not ask for proof of strength. It did not demand that he suffer more than necessary. It only required that he walk. He set the stone gently on a flat rock beside the trail. A strange emotion moved through him. Part guilt, part relief. Next he lifted the wooden charm. He remembered the day it had been given to him. He had been told that striving constantly made him distant. He had taken the charm as reminder to guard himself, but in guarding he had also hardened. Did this charm protect him, or did it weigh him down? He placed it beside the stone. Finally, he unfolded one of the letters from his rival. The words were sharp, competitive mocking. He had read them many times, using them as fuel. Yet standing there halfway to the summit, he felt tired of fuel that burned so harshly. The mountain required steady breath, not anger. He folded the letter once more and left it with the others. When he closed the pack and lifted it again, it was lighter, not empty, but balanced. He adjusted the straps without tightening them excessively. As he resumed walking, he noticed something immediately. His posture changed. He no longer leaned forward in defiance. He walked upright. The path remained long. The air remained thin, but his steps became smoother. He began to see that much of his struggle had not come from the mountain. It had come from what he insisted on carrying. The mountain asked only for presence. The extra weight had been self-imposed. As the wind moved across the ridge, brushing lightly against his face, Haroun felt a subtle clarity arise. Strength was not the ability to carry everything. It was the wisdom to know what could be set down. The path ahead stretched upward in quiet invitation. For the first time since beginning the ascent, Haroun did not feel as though he were battling the mountain. He felt as though he were walking with it, and with each step taken without unnecessary burden, the climb became not easier, but truer. For the first mile after setting the objects aside, Haroun felt almost lighthearted. His stride lengthened, his breathing steadied. The strain in his lower back softened into a manageable warmth. Yet as the path curved out of sight of the small pile of objects he had left behind, another sensation arose. Doubt. What if I need them later? What if I regret this? What if leaving them means forgetting who I am? The pack was lighter. But the mind began quietly gathering new stones. He recognized the movement almost immediately. Wave. The thought did not vanish. It lingered persuasive. The stone was your father's gift. The charm held memory. The letters carried proof of your ambition. He continued walking. The mountain did not respond to his internal debate. The wind moved exactly as before. A realization dawned slowly. He had believed that the weight in his pack defined him, that without these objects he would lose a certain edge, a certain identity. But as he walked with a straighter spine and freer breath, he noticed something unexpected. He did not feel diminished. He felt clearer. The absence of weight revealed how much energy had been spent simply maintaining it. For years he had carried stories about himself. I am the one who endures. I am the one who proves others wrong. I am the one who never sets anything down. These identities had seemed like strength. Now they felt like armor worn long after the battle had ended. Midway up the path narrowed again. Loose stones shifted beneath his boots. In the past, the backward pull of his pack would have made this section precarious. Now he noticed that balance came more naturally. His body adjusted without strain. His steps required less force. The mountain had not grown kinder. He had simply stopped arguing with gravity. A gust of wind swept across the ridge, stronger than the others. It caught the fabric of his coat and pushed against his side. For a moment, instinctively, he reached backward as if to steady the pack, as if bracing for the familiar counterweight. There was none. He laughed softly. The absence of burden had changed how he met the wind. He was not anchored by excess. He was free to shift. By late afternoon, he reached a plateau where several travelers rested before the final ascent. The elderly man he had seen earlier sat beneath a small pine, sipping from a wooden cup. Haroun lowered himself onto a nearby rock. "You travel lighter now," the old man observed without looking up. Haroun nodded. "I left some things behind." The old man smiled faintly. Were they necessary? Haroun considered the question carefully. "They felt necessary," he said, "but the mountain did not require them." "And do you?" Haroun hesitated. He watched the clouds drift slowly across the sky. "For a long time I thought I did." He admitted, "I thought carrying everything proved my strength. And now I see that carrying everything prevented me from walking freely." The old man nodded. "Many confuse attachment with loyalty," he said. "We believe that releasing something means dishonoring it. But sometimes releasing is the only way to honor what truly mattered." Haroun felt those words settle deeply. He had not discarded his father's lesson. He had refined it. Endurance did not mean perpetual burden. It meant steady presence. As the sun began to descend, painting the mountain in muted gold, Haroun rose for the final stretch. The summit was not far now. Each step upward felt deliberate but unforced. When fatigue appeared, he acknowledged it. When doubt whispered, he noticed it. Wave. He did not need to push the thoughts away. He did not need to carry them either. They could arise. They could fade. The path required only that he continue walking. When he finally reached the crest, the view opened wide valleys unfolding in soft layers below distant rivers reflecting the last light of day. He stood in silence. The summit did not congratulate him. The sky did not declare him transformed. And yet, he felt something unmistakable. The journey had changed, not because the mountain had yielded, but because he had set down what was never required. He realized then that the pack had been a mirror. The objects inside were visible forms of invisible weight, expectations, resentments, self-images long carried without question. By placing the stone, the charm and the letters beside the trail, he had not erased his past. He had stopped dragging it into every step of his future. As evening settled around him, Haroun began his descent on the opposite side of the pass. The path downward was different yet familiar. He understood now that mountains would continue to rise in his life. New journeys would demand preparation. New tools would be necessary, but he would choose with greater care. The mountain had taught him a quiet truth. Not every burden is duty. Not every memory must be carried. Not every story deserves to define the next step. Sometimes the most faithful act is to set something down and walk on without it. Setting down weight is one kind of freedom. But even with empty shoulders, the mind can still reach outward, trying to steady what cannot be steadied. We release old burdens, and yet we continue to bargain with uncertainty. We lighten the pack, and yet we attempt to arrange the sky. There is a subtle habit that remains long after obvious attachments are set aside. The habit of control. We believe that if we plan carefully enough, nothing unexpected will disturb us. If we manage every detail, nothing will slip beyond our reach. If we protect what we love tightly enough, it will not change. But life does not move according to our tightening. Wind rises, seasons shift, light fades, and what we try hardest to hold steady often trembles most. The path does not ask us to abandon responsibility. It asks something quieter. Can we witness change without trying to command it?
Can we remain present while everything moves? To understand this, we turn to another story. A story of a woman who spent many evenings watching a single candle flame, believing that if she could keep it perfectly still, she could keep her world from shifting. In a quiet village where evenings settled gently over tiled rooftops and narrow stone streets, there lived a woman named Ilara. Ilara valued order. Her home was arranged with care. Bowls aligned evenly on wooden shelves, curtains tied at identical lengths, shoes placed precisely beside the door. Even the small garden behind her house was trimmed into measured shapes, each plant pruned to encourage symmetry. To visitors, her life appeared serene. There were no raised voices in her home, no unfinished tasks left scattered about, no impulsive decisions that might disturb the rhythm she had so carefully built. But beneath this quiet arrangement, Ilara carried a subtle tension. She feared disruption. When clouds gathered unexpectedly, she felt unease. When a guest arrived unannounced, her pulse quickened. When a plan shifted even slightly, a thin thread of anxiety tightened within her chest. Change to her felt like threat. She told herself she simply preferred stability. But what she truly wanted was certainty. One winter evening, after a long day spent adjusting small imperfections around her home, Ilara lit a single candle on the table before her. The wind outside moved through the narrow streets, whispering along the walls. Though the windows were closed, the flame trembled gently in response to unseen currents of air. Ilara watched it. The small flame leaned to one side, then straightened. It elongated briefly, then contracted. Its edges shimmered in delicate motion. Something about its instability unsettled her. She rose and checked the windows once more. She pressed the shutters tighter. She sealed a small crack near the frame with cloth. Returning to the table, she studied the flame again. It still flickered. A faint irritation stirred. Why can it not remain steady? She cupped her hands around it, carefully creating a barrier between flame and air. For a moment, it stood straighter, but her hands grew warm. The air within her palms thinned. The flame shrank, struggling for breath. Startled, she pulled her hands away. The flame surged back, lively once more. Ilara leaned back slowly. The candle had not needed confinement. It had needed space. Yet she could not look away from it. There was something hypnotic about the constant motion. The flame never froze. It never held one shape. It existed entirely through movement. She began lighting a candle each evening. It became a quiet ritual. She would sit at the table after dinner, watching the small dance of light against the walls. At first, she watched critically. Each flicker seemed like imperfection. Each sway felt like instability. But gradually, as days passed, her observation softened. She noticed that the flame did not resist the air. When a draft moved through the room, it leaned. When the air stilled, it rose upright. It did not attempt to hold a previous shape. It did not cling to stillness. It responded. One evening, a stronger gust slipped through the smallest crack in the window frame. The flame bent nearly horizontal, thin and fragile. Ilara felt her body tense. It will go out. Her hand lifted instinctively, ready to shield it, but she paused. Wave. She lowered her hand. The flame trembled. Then as the gust passed, it righted itself. Alive. Ilara exhaled slowly. For years, she had tried to protect her life the way she had tried to shield the candle, by tightening control, by sealing every crack, by anticipating every possible disturbance. But the flame had shown her something simple. Movement did not destroy it.
Confinement nearly had. She began to wonder how much of her own tension came not from change itself, but from her attempt to prevent it. In the following days, she experimented. When a delivery arrived late, she noticed the surge of irritation. Wave. When a neighbor canceled a visit unexpectedly, she felt disappointment rise. Wave. Instead of rearranging her schedule frantically, she allowed the moment to stand as it was. The discomfort did not vanish instantly, but it moved, like the flame. Some evenings, she deliberately left the smallest window slightly open. She watched the candle lean and sway in the invisible currents. The dance was unpredictable, but it was beautiful. She realized that the very movement she once tried to eliminate was what gave the flame life. A perfectly still flame, sealed from all air, would suffocate. Perhaps a perfectly controlled life would as well. As winter softened toward spring, Ilara noticed that her home remained orderly, but her mind felt less rigid. When rain altered her garden plans, she adjusted. When guests arrived early, she welcomed them without panic. The flicker no longer signaled danger. It signaled aliveness. The candle continued to burn each evening. Its light wavered across the walls in ever-changing shapes. And as she watched, Ilara understood something quietly transformative. Impermanence was not the enemy of peace. It was the condition that made peace possible. Without movement, there would be no warmth. Without change, no growth. Without flicker, no flame. She no longer tried to hold the light still. She simply watched it dance. And in that watching, she found a steadiness deeper than control. For many evenings, the candle continued to teach her gently. It leaned, it straightened, it shimmered in quiet obedience to the unseen currents of air. Ilara grew accustomed to its dance. She began to trust that even strong flickers would settle. That light, though unstable in form, would remain. Then one night, the wind came differently. It did not whisper along the walls. It did not slide softly through hidden cracks. It struck. A sudden draft rushed through the room. When the door to the courtyard swung open unexpectedly, the flame bent sharply thin to a thread of blue and vanished. Smoke curled upward in a thin gray ribbon. Darkness filled the table. Ilara froze. The room moments before, warm with gentle light, now felt hollow. Her first impulse was immediate. Relight it. Fix this. Restore what was. Her hand reached for the matchbox, but she stopped. The smoke continued to rise, dissolving into the ceiling's shadow. The wick glowed faintly red, then cooled. Wave. The extinguished flame was no longer flicker. It was absence, and absence carried a different weight. She had learned to watch movement, but could she watch disappearance? The darkness did not threaten her. It simply existed. She felt something tighten in her chest, not fear of the dark itself, but resistance to the finality of the moment. The flame had not negotiated. It had not promised to return. It had ended. She sat very still. For years, she had tried to prevent endings in subtle ways, preserving objects long past their use, maintaining routines long after their purpose faded, avoiding conversations that might alter familiar patterns. But here was a small, undeniable truth. The flame had lived because air moved. It had ended because air moved. The same condition that sustained it had also extinguished it. Impermanence was not selective. It did not choose only pleasant forms to change. It changed everything. Tears rose quietly in her eyes. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, but sincere. She realized that much of her desire for control had come from fear of this moment. The moment when something she depended on would disappear. A relationship shifting, a season ending, a body aging. She had tried to steady the flame, not because she disliked movement, but because she feared loss. The matchbox rested beside her hand. She could relight the candle easily, and she would. But not yet, for now she allowed the darkness to be present. Her eyes adjusted slowly. Shapes emerged in softer outline. The room was not empty, it was simply different. She noticed the sound of wind outside more clearly now, the faint creak of wood, the rhythm of her own breathing. Without the flame, other details appeared. The absence of light revealed a different kind of seeing. She understood then that her peace could not depend solely on what remained lit. If her calm existed only while the candle burned, it would always be fragile. But if she could sit with darkness without panic, then her steadiness would not depend on the flame at all. After several minutes, she struck a match. The brief flare illuminated her face. She touched it to the wick. The candle reignited, small at first, then growing. The room warmed again. But something within her had changed. The flame was no longer symbol of permanence. It was symbol of process. It would burn, it would flicker, it would end. And none of those phases required resistance. From that night forward, she no longer watched the candle with the hope that would remain. She watched it with gratitude that it appeared at all. When it flickered, she smiled. When it bent low, she waited. And when it finally went out at the end of each evening, she did not rush to relight it immediately. She allowed the dark, for she had learned something deeper than control. She had learned that peace is not found in preserving the flame, but in understanding its nature. Light flickers. Seasons turn, flames rise and fall. Yet there is another kind of impermanence, not sudden extinguishing, but gradual emptiness. A field once full of growth can stand bare, a harvest can end, a cycle can complete, and when nothing remains to tend, we are left facing something quieter still. Let us turn now to the story of a farmer who learned to see possibility in an empty field. In a valley where the soil was dark and generous, there lived a farmer named Tomas. For most of his life, his days followed the reliable rhythm of planting and harvest. In early spring, he turned the earth with steady hands, pressing seeds into furrows with quiet hope. In summer, he watched green shoots rise in ordered rows, stretching confidently toward the sun. In autumn, he gathered what had grown, bundles of wheat, baskets of vegetables, the visible reward of patience and labor. His identity was woven into these cycles. He was the one who cultivated, the one who produced, the one whose fields stood full, while others sometimes struggled. The land responded well to his care, and Thomas took pride in this partnership. But one year after an especially abundant harvest, something unexpected occurred. The following season, he chose to let one of his largest fields lie fallow. The soil, he reasoned, needed rest. It was practical, wise even. And yet when spring arrived and that field remained unplanted, a strange discomfort settled over him. Where there had once been neat lines of seedlings, there was only bare earth. Where green had stretched toward the horizon, there was open space. He walked the perimeter of the empty field each morning. The ground was not damaged. It was not barren. It was simply unused. Still unease stirred. Neighbors passed by and asked casually, "Nothing growing here this year." He answered calmly, "The soil is resting," but inside a quiet voice whispered, "You are wasting time. You are losing opportunity. You should be producing." The absence of growth felt like absence of worth. In the evenings, he found himself staring across the empty land, imagining what could have been planted. Wheat, barley, rows of corn swaying in wind. The field did not accuse him. It lay open beneath the sky, receiving sun and rain alike. But Thomas projected judgment onto its stillness. He realized that he had grown accustomed to visible progress, to signs of advancement, to tangible results. An empty field offered none of these. One afternoon, an elderly neighbor named Mira stopped beside the fence. She followed his gaze across the bare earth. "It looks peaceful," she said. Thomas nodded stiffly. "It looks unproductive," he replied. Mira smiled gently. "Does the soil cease to exist because nothing is planted?" He did not answer. "Rest is not absence," she continued. "It is preparation." Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "I know that," he said. "It is practical." "Yes," Mira agreed. "But do you feel it?" Her question lingered long after she walked away. "Do you feel it?" That evening, instead of standing at the edge of the field imagining crops, Thomas stepped into the open space. The earth was cool beneath his boots. Small wild grasses had begun to sprout where no seeds had been deliberately placed. He knelt and touched the soil. It was soft, moist from recent rain, alive. The field was not empty. It was simply unstructured. For years, Thomas had equated value with visible output. If something was not growing in orderly rows, if effort was not producing measurable yield, he felt uneasy. But standing there, he sensed another possibility. Perhaps space itself held purpose. The mind, like the field, often demands constant planting, goals, plans, projects. When there is no visible progress, anxiety fills the gap. We rush to sow something, anything, rather than sit with openness. Thomas had done the same with his life. Even in winter, when little could be grown, he busied himself repairing tools, rearranging storage, planning future expansions. He rarely allowed stillness without agenda. Now the land mirrored back to him a question. What if emptiness is not failure? What if it is necessary? He began walking the field each day without evaluating it. No measuring, no calculating potential yield, just walking. He noticed subtle details previously overlooked. The way morning light stretched across the soil in soft bands. The faint hum of insects near the ground. The resilience of small wildflowers appearing without invitation. The field, freed from cultivation, revealed another kind of life. Unplanned, unforced. Thomas realized that his discomfort had not come from the field itself, but from his attachment to constant production. He had believed that worth must always be demonstrated, but the soil did not demand to prove itself. It simply rested. As weeks passed, his anxiety softened. When neighbors asked again about the unplanted land, he answered without defensiveness. "It is gathering strength," he said, and this time he meant it. He began to see parallels in his own mind. Moments without clear direction no longer felt threatening. Periods of quiet no longer required immediate filling. Like soil between harvests, he too could lie fallow, not abandoned, not barren, simply renewing. By the time autumn approached again, Thomas stood at the edge of the field with different eyes. He no longer saw emptiness. He saw potential, not the frantic potential of immediate yield, but the deep, patient potential of readiness. The field had not been idle. It had been preparing. And in learning to trust that preparation, Thomas discovered that productivity and peace were not opposites. Both required cycles. Both required rest. The path he understood does not only teach us to act, it also teaches us when to be still. And sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is to allow a season of apparent emptiness without rushing to fill it. As summer deepened, the contrast between Tomas's resting field and his neighbor's flourishing crops became more visible. Golden wheat swayed on either side of the valley. Rows of corn stood tall and orderly. Laughter echoed from fields heavy with promise. And in the center of it all, Thomas's land lay open, brown, uneven, scattered with wild growth. The comments began gently. "You could have doubled your harvest this year. You are fortunate the soil is strong enough to waste a season. It looks forgotten." None of the remarks were cruel, yet each one stirred a familiar tightening in Thomas's chest. Wave. He noticed how quickly the old impulse returned, the need to justify, to explain in detail, to prove that his choice was intelligent. He wanted to speak of soil health, of nutrient cycles, of long-term yield. But beneath the practical reasoning lay something more fragile. He wanted reassurance. One evening, after hearing yet another passing comment, he walked alone into the empty field at dusk. The sky above the valley glowed in soft hues of fading gold and violet. Crickets had begun their steady chorus. The air carried the faint scent of ripening grain from neighboring plots. He stood at the center of the field and closed his eyes. The voices of others echoed faintly in memory. "You are wasting time. You are falling behind. You are doing nothing." He felt the pull to compare. Wave. He inhaled slowly. The earth beneath him did not compare itself. It did not hurry because other fields were full. It did not shrink because others judged it barren. It simply held its place. He knelt again, pressing his palm into the soil. Warm, alive, patient. He realized then that trusting a season meant tolerating misunderstanding. Rest is rarely admired from the outside. Stillness can appear like stagnation. Pauses are often mistaken for weakness, yet without winter, spring would exhaust itself. Without fallow periods, harvests would thin year after year. He had known this intellectually. Now he felt it. The field did not rush to defend itself. It trusted the unseen processes unfolding beneath the surface. Roots decomposed. Microorganisms worked quietly. Moisture gathered and dispersed in rhythms invisible from a distance. What appeared empty was in truth active beyond sight. Tomas recognized the same pattern within himself. There were days when he felt directionless, not driven by urgent plans or ambitious expansions. In the past, such days had unsettled him. Now he saw them differently. Perhaps something unseen was rearranging itself beneath awareness. Perhaps clarity required space. The next time a neighbor commented on the bare field, Tomas smiled without defensiveness. "It is part of the harvest," he said simply. The neighbor frowned, slightly puzzled. "How so?" "Because next year it will give more fully," Tomas replied. But even as he spoke, he knew the deeper truth was not about next year. It was about this year, about learning not to measure worth solely by visible output. As autumn approached once more, the valley shimmered with abundance. Tomas harvested his remaining planted fields with steady hands. When he looked across the resting land, he felt no shame, no urgency, only quiet confidence. The cycle would turn. The soil would receive seed again. But now when he stood in an open space, whether in his field or within his own mind, he no longer rushed to fill it. He had learned to trust that what looks like nothing may be preparing everything. Some lessons teach us to rest, others teach us to release. But there remains another subtle tension on the path. Even when we trust the season, even when we set down burdens, we may still strain toward results. We aim, we calculate, we measure success by where the arrow lands. Yet what if true mastery lies not in forcing accuracy, but in relaxing the one who aims? Let us turn now to a story of an archer who could strike any target except the one he tried hardest to hit. In a province known for its disciplined warriors and quiet mountain temples, there lived an archer named Kale. From childhood, Kale had shown rare precision, while other boys loosed arrows wildly into hay bales. Kale struck the painted circle at the center again and again. His posture was exact, his breath measured, his gaze unwavering. As he grew older, his skill became reputation. He could split an arrow already lodged in the target. He could strike by lantern light. He could loose 3 arrows before the first had landed. Villagers spoke his name with admiration. Students asked to train under him. Competitions ended predictably. Kyle won. Yet as seasons passed, something subtle changed. The more praise he received, the more he began to guard his reputation. When he stood before a target alone, his body moved with ease. The bow rose, the breath settled, the arrow flew cleanly. But when others watched, especially when stakes were high, a thin thread of tension entered his hands. What if I miss? What if today is different? What if my skill fades? The questions were quiet, almost invisible. Yet they altered everything. At an important regional tournament held each spring, Kyle stood before a line of competitors' banners fluttering above them. The crowd gathered in thick semicircles. Murmurs rolled across the field like distant wind. He had won this tournament 3 years in a row. His name had already been announced with confidence. He stepped forward. The target stood far across the field, its red center small but familiar. He lifted the bow. His form was correct, his stance stable, his breathing practiced. Yet, beneath the surface, something tightened. Do not miss. He drew the string back. The muscles in his forearm engaged with precision. His shoulders aligned, his eye traced the invisible line between bow and center. Do not miss. The command echoed louder than the silence around him. He released. The arrow flew, swift, clean, but landed just outside the center. A ripple moved through the crowd. Not gasps, not laughter, but surprise. Kyle felt heat rise along his neck. A single miss was not failure. He knew this, but something in him recoiled. He prepared for the second shot. Now the thought was sharper. You must correct this. His grip tightened slightly, his jaw set. He aimed more carefully, adjusted his angle by a fraction. He released. The arrow struck farther from center than the first. A murmur this time. The smallest tremor moved through his fingers. His body, once fluid, now felt mechanical. Every movement required supervision. Every breath required management. By the time he loosed the final arrow, his focus had narrowed into strain. The arrow landed wide. The tournament ended without his name called. Kyle left the field quietly. He did not blame the wind. He did not blame the bow. He blamed himself. That evening, alone at his practice range beyond the village, he set up the same distance, the same target. He stood without audience, The air was calm, the sky open. He lifted the bow. His breath settled naturally. The string drew back without hesitation. He released. The arrow struck the center. Again. Again. Precision returned as though nothing had happened. Kyle lowered the bow slowly. The difference was undeniable. In solitude, he did not aim to preserve reputation. He did not aim to avoid embarrassment. He did not aim to prove anything. He simply shot. But before others, he shot against fear. The target had not changed. The distance had not changed. Only the archer had. He began to observe his inner movements with new curiosity. When he thought of competition, his breath shortened. When he imagined failure, his shoulders tightened. When he pictured admiration, his chest expanded with hunger. Each thought bent his posture by invisible degrees. The bow responded to the body. The arrow responded to the bow. And the target revealed the tension he could not see. He realized then that he had been trying to control the arrow's landing. But once released, the arrow belonged to air. His true work lay before release. Yet even there, something deeper was at play. The moment he tried to guarantee success, his body lost its natural rhythm. The more he desired the center, the farther he drifted from it. It was not lack of skill. It was excess in tension. He sat on the ground beside the range bow, resting across his knees. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the field. A question arose within him, quiet but piercing. Who shoots when there is no one to impress, when there is no title to defend, when there is no image to protect? He closed his eyes and felt the subtle tremor that remained in his hands. Not weakness, attachment. He had mistaken effort for mastery, but effort layered with fear was strain, and strain bent the arrow before it ever left the string. The wind moved softly through the tall grass beside him. It did not aim, it did not calculate, it did not seek approval. It simply moved. Kyle understood that his arrows once flew true because he allowed the shot to happen. Now he was trying to force it. The path before him was not about practicing harder. It was about releasing something far more subtle than the string. He would have to learn how to aim without tightening around the aim. To shoot without trying to secure the result. For the first time in many years, Kyle felt not confident but curious, and that curiosity, lighter than ambition, marked the beginning of a different kind of training. A few days after the tournament, Kyle sought out his former teacher, an aging master named Ishan, who lived in a small dwelling at the edge of the cedar forest. Ishan no longer competed. He no longer demonstrated elaborate feats. He spent his days repairing bows, tending a modest garden, and occasionally guiding those who asked sincerely. Kyle bowed deeply upon arrival. "I have lost something," he said without preamble. Ishan studied him quietly. "Your arrows still fly?" the master asked. "Yes, and your arms are still strong." "Yes." "Then what have you lost?" Kyle hesitated. "My ease," he admitted. "When I stand before others, my body tightens. I try harder, and the more I try, the worse I shoot." Ishan nodded as though this were unsurprising. "Show me," he said. They walked to a small clearing behind the dwelling, where a simple straw target stood against a wooden post. No audience, Ishan observed. Only trees. Kyle lifted his bow. He drew, released. The arrow struck near the center. Again, clean. Ishan watched without comment. Now the master said, "Imagine that I am the emperor. Imagine that your position depends on this shot. Imagine that every archer in the province is waiting to see you fail. Kyle felt his chest constrict instantly. His fingers tightened around the string. His breath grew shallow. He drew back. The line between bow and target wavered almost imperceptibly. He released. The arrow landed wide. Ishan gave a small nod. "You see," Kale lowered the bow. "I cannot stop the thoughts," he said. "You do not need to stop them," Ishan replied. "You are trying to shoot 2 targets." Kyle frowned. "There is only one." Ishan tapped lightly against Kyle's chest. "One target stands there," he said, gesturing toward the straw. "The other stands here." Kyle understood. Approval, reputation, identity. "You are not missing the outer target," Ishan continued. "You are tightening around the inner one." They sat together beneath the shade of cedar branches. "When you first learned to shoot," Ishan said softly, "what did you aim for?" "The center." Kale replied automatically, and before that Kale thought carefully. He remembered being a boy fascinated by the arc of the arrow itself, the sound of the string, the feeling of alignment between breath and movement. "I aim to feel the shot," he said slowly. Ishan smiled. "Yes." He stood and picked up the bow. "Watch," he said. The master's movements were unhurried. He raised the bow without flourish. He drew the string back smoothly. There was no visible strain in his face, no tightening around the eyes. He released. The arrow struck the target with quiet certainty. But what struck Kyle most was not the accuracy. It was the absence of effort. Ishan turned toward him. "I do not shoot to hit the center," he said. "I shoot to complete the movement." Kyle blinked. "If the movement is complete," Ishan continued, "the arrow will go where it goes. My task ends at release." "But does accuracy not matter?" Kyle asked. "Of course it matters," Ishan said. "But it is a consequence, not a possession." He handed the bow back. "Draw," he instructed. Kyle obeyed. "Now," Ishan said, "do not aim at the target. Aim at the feeling of balance in your body. Notice your feet. Notice your breath. Notice the weight of the bow." Kyle shifted his attention inward. The target blurred slightly in his peripheral vision. His awareness settled into the soles of his feet, into the steady rise and fall of breath, into the gentle tension of the string beneath his fingers. "Release when the movement feels finished," Ishan said quietly. Kyle did not count. He did not calculate distance. He allowed the breath to complete its cycle. And, in the moment when nothing felt forced, the string slipped from his fingers. The arrow flew. It landed close to the center, not perfectly, but cleanly. More importantly, his body felt different. Not rigid, not braced, whole. "You see," Ishan said, "when you aim to secure the result, you disturb the movement. When you complete the movement, the result takes care of itself." Kyle felt something loosen, not in his grip, but deeper. For years he had believed mastery meant increasing control. Now he sensed that mastery might mean decreasing interference. They practiced until the sun lowered behind the trees. Each time Kale felt the old tightening return, Ishan said only one word: balance. Not aim, not win, balance. And gradually, Kale began to experience a new rhythm. The arrow did not always strike the exact center, but it no longer carried the weight of his identity. The shot became an expression of alignment, not a negotiation with fear. As twilight settled, Ishan placed a hand lightly on Kale's shoulder. "Remember," he said, "the arrow does not miss because the world resists you. It misses because you resist the moment of release." Kyle bowed deeply. For the first time since the tournament, he did not feel the need to prove anything. He felt the quiet possibility of shooting without strain. Weeks later, another gathering was announced. Not as grand as the regional tournament, yet large enough that many skilled archers would attend. Kyle's name appeared again among the competitors. When he read it, he noticed the familiar stirring in his chest. Anticipation, memory, a faint echo of past embarrassment. Wave. He did not attempt to silence it. He did not pretend indifference. Instead, he returned to the clearing behind Ishan's dwelling each morning, practicing not accuracy, but balance. Feet grounded, breath steady, movement complete. The day of the competition arrived under a pale, open sky. The field looked the same as before. The banners, the semicircle of spectators, the distant red center of the target. But Kyle felt different, not confident in the old way, not armored by reputation, simply present. When his name was called, he stepped forward without rush. He placed his feet carefully on the earth. For a moment, the crowd dissolved into background sound like wind through tall grass. He felt the bow in his hand, the subtle weight of the string, the rise of breath in his chest. A thought flickered. What if you miss again, Wave? He did not chase it. He did not argue with it. The thought passed as lightly as it had come. He lifted the bow. This time he did not narrow his vision into a tunnel of forced concentration. He allowed the target to exist where it was not enemy, not judge, simply a point in space. He drew the string back. Instead of aiming to secure the center, he sensed the alignment of body and breath. When the movement felt complete, neither rushed nor held, the string slipped from his fingers. The arrow flew. It struck near the center. A murmur of approval moved through the crowd. Kyle heard it faintly, as though from a distance. He prepared the second arrow. Again, the old impulse tried to reassert itself. Now you must maintain this. Do not lose it. Wave. He smiled slightly at the familiarity of the voice. Balance. He returned attention to his feet, to breath, to the living tension of the bow. Release. The arrow landed cleanly, closer still. By the third shot, something subtle occurred. There was no inner commentary at all. No striving, no avoidance, only the simple arc of movement. Lift, draw, release. The arrow struck the center. The crowd responded louder now, but Kyle felt neither surge of pride nor tremor of relief. He felt completion. Each shot had ended at release. Where the arrow landed was no longer a measure of his worth. When the final scores were announced, his name returned to the top. Others congratulated him. He bowed graciously. Yet as he walked away from the field, he understood something more important than victory. The difference had not been greater effort. It had been the absence of strain. He had not forced the arrow toward the center. He had not tried to hold success in place. He had allowed the shot to happen. Later that evening, he visited Ishan once more. I did not shoot to win, Kyle said quietly. Ishan raised an eyebrow. And yet the arrows flew true. The master nodded. When you stop grasping at the fruit, he said, the tree bears naturally. Kyle sat in silence for a long time. He realized that archery had become mirror for his life. How often had he tightened around outcomes in reputation, in relationships, in the quiet image he held of himself? How often had strain bent the arrow before release? He understood now that effort was not the enemy, but effort layered with fear distorted action. When action arises from balance, it carries a different quality. Lighter, cleaner. The wind moved through the cedar trees, steady and unforced. Kyle listened. He knew there would be future tournaments, future moments of doubt. The practice would not end, but something fundamental had shifted. He no longer needed to strike the center to feel centered, and in that quiet realization, the arrow, the target, and the archer began to feel less separate than before. Balance softens effort. Effortlessness refines action. But even when movement becomes natural, a deeper question remains. Who is it that acts? Who is it that succeeds or fails? Who is it that believes it must improve? We learn to release tension. We learn to trust seasons. We learn to set down burdens and shoot without strain. Yet quietly, almost invisibly, another assumption continues to shape our striving. The assumption that something within us is incomplete, that we must polish ourselves into worthiness, repair flaws, correct imperfections. We treat the mind like tarnished metal, believing that with enough effort, it will finally shine. But what if the surface we keep polishing was never the source of light? What if awareness itself has never been damaged? A mirror may gather dust. It may reflect distorted images. It may appear dull in dim light. Yet the mirror itself is not stained by what it reflects. The sky is not scarred by passing clouds. Water is not permanently marked by waves. And perhaps the mind at its deepest level has never required repair. To see this clearly, we turn to a simple scene. A child, a mirror, and the quiet discovery that nothing essential was ever broken. In a small courtyard behind a row of modest homes, there stood an old mirror nailed to a wooden post. It had once belonged inside a house, but over time, its silver backing had begun to fade at the edges. Rather than discard it, the family had placed it outside near the well where children often played. The mirror was not perfect. Its surface carried faint scratches. In certain light, small dark specks appeared where the backing had thinned. When rain came, droplets dried across it in uneven patterns. Adults passing by would sometimes glance at their reflection and frown. It is getting worse, one would say. It should be cleaned. It no longer reflects clearly, and occasionally someone would wipe it briskly with a cloth, polishing with determined strokes as if clarity could be forced into place. Yet no matter how thoroughly it was rubbed, the small specks at the edges remained. One afternoon, a young child named Luma wandered into the courtyard while her mother drew water from the well. Luma had recently discovered reflections. She approached the mirror with wide curiosity. At first, she saw only movement, light, and shadow shifting as she stepped closer. Then slowly, a face emerged. Her face. She tilted her head. The reflection tilted with her. She raised her hand. The small hand in the mirror rose in perfect synchrony. A delighted laugh escaped her. There was no judgment in her gaze, no assessment of flaws, no attempt to adjust the image. She did not wonder whether the mirror was clear enough. She did not inspect the fading silver along the edges. She simply experienced the wonder of seeing. When a smear from dried rain caught part of her cheek in the reflection, she did not assume something was wrong with her face. She reached out and touched the glass. Her fingers left faint new marks. The mirror reflected them, too. Behind her, two older boys approached, glancing at their own images briefly before scoffing. "It makes me look strange," one muttered. They wiped the surface again with hurried impatience. Luma watched quietly. When they left, she returned to the mirror. She leaned closer. Breath fogged the glass for a moment, softening the image further. She giggled and drew a simple circle in the mist with her finger. The circle vanished as the fog cleared. Nothing in the mirror held on to what had passed across it. Clouded, cleared, marked, unmarked, it reflected without resistance. An elderly woman sitting nearby observed the scene with quiet attention. She had heard the adults complain about the mirror for years. They wished it were newer, brighter, free of imperfections. Yet in the child's presence, the mirror seemed whole. The woman approached slowly and stood beside Luma. "What do you see?" she asked gently. "Myself," Luma replied. "And is there anything wrong?" Luma considered the question with solemn care. She studied her reflection, turned her head left and right. Then she shook her head. "No," the woman smiled faintly. After Luma ran off to chase a butterfly, the woman remained before the mirror. She looked at her own aging face lines at the corners of her eyes. Skin softened by time. She noticed the instinct to adjust her posture, to correct what she saw. Then she remembered the child's unguarded gaze. The mirror had not judged, it had not distorted intentionally. It had simply reflected what appeared before it. The fading at the edges did not damage its capacity to reflect. The passing clouds did not stain the sky. Perhaps she thought the mind is similar. Thoughts pass across it. Emotions streak through it. Memories fog its surface, and we assume that these movements define it. We attempt to polish away anger, to scrub out sadness, to correct every imperfection in the image we see. But what if awareness itself, the simple capacity to know experience, has never been harmed by what it reflects? The child had not tried to fix the mirror. She had not confused the smear with her own face. She had simply seen. The woman stepped back, letting the afternoon light fall naturally across the glass. The mirror stood as it always had, imperfect in form, perfect in function, reflecting without attachment. In that quiet courtyard beside a well-worn, smoothed by years of use, a small truth shimmered unnoticed by most. The problem was not the mirror. It was the belief that the reflection needed to be perfected before it could be trusted. Among the adults who often paused before the mirror was a man named Aaron. Aaron was known in the village for his discipline. He rose before dawn, exercised with strict routine, read volumes of philosophy, and kept careful account of his habits. He believed firmly in self-improvement. Each flaw he discovered became a project. If he noticed impatience, he devised strategies to eliminate it. If he sensed envy, he countered it with deliberate acts of generosity. If he felt sadness, he searched for its cause and worked tirelessly to correct it. To others, Aaron appeared admirable, focused, determined. Yet when he stood before the courtyard mirror, he often frowned. He did not see the fade-in edges of silver. He saw imperfections in himself, not in his face alone, but in the subtle posture of his being. I should be calmer. I should be wiser. I should be beyond these small reactions. Each should become another cloth in his hand, polishing vigorously at an image he wished would change. One afternoon, after a frustrating exchange with a colleague, Aaron found himself standing before the mirror again. He replayed the conversation in his mind. Why did I react that way? Why did irritation rise so quickly? I thought I had moved past this. His jaw tightened. He leaned closer to the glass, studying his reflection. as though the answer might be written across his brow. Behind him, the elderly woman who had once watched Luma stepped quietly into the courtyard. "You are very serious with that mirror," she observed. Arin glanced back briefly. "It shows me what I need to fix," he replied. The woman tilted her head. "Does it?" Arin gestured toward his own image. "I see impatience in my eyes, tension in my mouth. I am not yet the person I should be." The woman stepped beside him and looked into the mirror as well. The two reflections stood side by side, one lined by age, one drawn by striving. "What do you think the mirror is for?" she asked. "To reflect," Arin said. "And does it choose what to reflect? No. Does it cling to yesterday's expression? No. Then why do you?" Arin fell silent. The question unsettled him more than criticism would have. "I must improve," he said finally. "Otherwise I remain flawed." The woman pointed upward. The sky stretched wide above the courtyard, pale and open. "If a cloud passes," she asked, "does the sky become flawed?" "No," Arin answered slowly. "If a storm moves through, does the sky need repair?" "No." "Then perhaps," she said gently, "you are trying to polish the sky." The phrase struck him. Polish the sky. He felt something inside resist immediately. "But if I do not correct myself, I will remain careless. If I do not strive, I will become complacent." Wave. For the first time, he noticed the tone of his own inner voice, harsh, relentless, rarely satisfied. He looked back at the mirror. His reflection still held traces of tension. But he wondered now whether the tension came from imperfection or from constant correction. He experimented silently. Instead of adjusting his posture, instead of softening his expression deliberately, he simply looked. The image in the mirror shifted slightly as his breath moved. Lines softened when he stopped scrutinizing them. He noticed that awareness of irritation was already different from being consumed by it. If he could see impatience, then something in him was not impatient. If he could observe tension, then something in him was not tense. The mirror did not need polishing. It needed recognition. The elderly woman stepped away, leaving him alone with the fading light. For years, Arin had treated growth as a battle. But what if growth sometimes meant ceasing to fight what appeared? What if awareness itself, like the mirror, was already clear? Even when reflections were not, he left the courtyard that evening without a plan for improvement. And for the first time in many years, the absence of a plan did not frighten him. In the days that followed, Arin did not abandon his routines. He still rose early. He still worked with care. He still spoke thoughtfully. But something subtle had shifted beneath the structure of his life. When irritation appeared, he no longer lunged at it with immediate correction. He noticed it. Heat in the chest, tightness in the throat. A story forming about how things should be different. Wave. For a few breaths, he allowed the experience to unfold without adding commentary. To his surprise, the irritation did not solidify into identity. It passed. What remained was simple awareness of having felt it. The mirror had reflected a storm. The mirror had not become the storm. One evening, he returned to the courtyard at twilight. The mirror caught the last light of the setting sun, glowing softly despite its worn edges. He stood before it again. This time he did not search for flaws. He did not rehearse improvement. He simply looked. The face that appeared was neither perfect nor defective. It was alive. Lines at the corners of his eyes spoke of years lived. A faint crease between his brows hinted at habits of thought, but beneath all of that, behind expression and mood, there was something unchanged, the simple fact of seeing. He became curious about that seeing itself, not what was seen, not the reflection, but the awareness in which the reflection appeared. He closed his eyes. The image of his face vanished, yet awareness did not. Sounds entered, distant voices, the creak of a door. Sensations pulsed, breath, heartbeat. Thoughts arose, fragments of memory, plans for tomorrow. All of it appeared and dissolved within the same open field of knowing. When he opened his eyes again, the mirror was still there. But now he sensed that the mirror outside and the mirror within were not so different. Both reflected. Neither was stained by what passed across them. He had spent years attempting to improve the reflections. Now he saw that awareness itself had never required improvement. It had always been present. Before discipline, before self-judgment, before ambition. Even in moments of confusion, even in moments of anger, the capacity to know those experiences had remained untouched. He felt a quiet easing spread through him. If awareness was already whole, then striving to become whole was unnecessary strain. Growth could still occur. Habits could still soften. Compassion could deepen. But none of these were attempts to fix something broken. They were expressions of something already intact. In the fading light, Aaron bowed slightly toward the mirror, not in reverence to the glass, but in gratitude for what it had revealed. The child had never questioned her reflection. She had simply seen. The mirror had never demanded polishing. It had simply reflected. And awareness, quiet, constant, open, had never once been damaged by what it contained. As night settled gently over the courtyard, the mirror grew dim, reflecting only shadow. Yet even in darkness, the capacity to see remained. Not dependent on image, not dependent on perfection, simply present. When we discover that nothing essential is broken, the search begins to change. We may still travel, we may still seek teachers in distant places, but the urgency softens. For if what we are looking for has never been absent, then even departure is part of returning. Let us turn now to the story of a man who left his village in search of awakening, only to discover that what he sought had been walking beside him all along. There was a man named Soren, who believed that awakening lived somewhere far away. Not in the narrow lanes of his village, not in the repetition of daily labor, not in the familiar faces that greeted him each morning. He believed it waited beyond the hills. Since childhood, Soren had listened to stories of sages dwelling in mountain caves, monks who meditated beneath waterfalls, teachers who spoke in riddles beneath ancient trees. The stories shimmered with distance. Enlightenment, he imagined, required departure. So he prepared. He sold a portion of his belongings, gave the rest to family, and packed only what was necessary for travel. When he stood at the edge of the village at dawn, the mist still clinging to rooftops, he felt both fear and anticipation. The road curved gently upward toward the hills. Behind him lay familiarity. Before him lay possibility. As he walked, he imagined the moment of realization. A sudden clarity. A profound silence. A transformation so complete that he would return unrecognizable. The first weeks of travel were filled with novelty. He crossed rivers by wooden bridges worn smooth by countless feet. He slept beneath open sky. He listened to travelers speak of distant monasteries, where discipline was absolute and wisdom abundant. Each new landscape felt like a step closer. When he finally reached a mountain temple spoken of in many stories, he bowed deeply at its gates. The monks received him without ceremony. He was given simple robes, assigned basic chores, invited to sit in meditation each dawn and dusk. The schedule was austere but clear. Wake before sunrise, sweep the courtyard, sit in silence, eat in silence, work in silence, sleep. Days passed, then weeks. Soren waited for the moment. He watched his breath. He observed his thoughts. He strained to detect some shift that would mark arrival, but his mind behaved much as it had in the village. Memories surfaced, desires flickered, doubts whispered. He grew frustrated. Perhaps this temple is not remote enough, he thought. Perhaps the true masters dwell higher still. One afternoon, after a restless meditation, he approached an elderly monk who was repairing a wooden railing. "I left everything behind to awaken," Soren said, "but my mind follows me. It is noisy here just as it was at home." The monk smiled faintly. "Did you expect it to remain behind?" he asked. Soren hesitated. "I thought distance would change something." "Distance changes scenery," the monk replied. "It does not change the one who looks." Soren felt irritation rise, wave. He had heard such phrases before. They felt clever but unhelpful. If awakening is not found here, he pressed then where the monk set down his tools and looked toward the valley below. "When you left your village," he said quietly, "what were you hoping to escape?" Soren considered the question. Restlessness, ordinariness, the sense that life was too small. "I wanted something greater," he admitted. The monk nodded. "And has the sky grown larger here?" Soren looked upward. The sky above the temple stretched vast and clear. "Yes," he said. "And was the sky smaller in your village?" Soren closed his eyes briefly. The memory of early mornings at home returned pale light over rooftops, birds calling from nearby trees. The sky had been wide there too. He had simply not looked at it. That evening, as he sat alone along the temple's outer wall, he watched the sun descend behind distant peaks. The view was undeniably beautiful, but something unsettled him. He recognized the same pattern of seeking that had followed him up the mountain. If not this temple, then another. If not this teacher, then someone wiser. If not this moment, then a future one more profound. The landscape had changed. The search had not. He understood then that leaving the village had not been a mistake. Travel had stripped away distractions. It had revealed the structure of his longing, but awakening would not be found in a different sky. It would be found in the way he stood beneath whatever sky was present. The road had carried him far from home, yet the one who walked it remained the same. And perhaps, just perhaps, the path forward would not require further distance, but deeper attention. For the first time since his departure, Soren felt not the urgency to move on, but the quiet invitation to stay. Not because the temple was special, but because wherever he stood, the moment stood with him. The days at the temple continued without revelation. There were no visions, no voices from the mountains, no sudden dissolving of thought into radiant silence. There was sweeping, there was chopping wood, there was carrying water up narrow stone steps worn smooth by generations of feet. At first, Soren waited within each activity for something extraordinary to happen. Perhaps while lifting a bucket he would feel a surge of insight. Perhaps while sitting in meditation, A great stillness would descend and remain. But the bucket was simply heavy. The water simply sloshed. The thoughts during meditation rose and fell as they always had. He began to notice a quiet disappointment growing within him. Wave. One afternoon, assigned to wash bowls after the midday meal, he found himself staring at the circular motion of his hands in the basin. Water swirled, foam gathered, reflections broke and reformed on the surface. For a moment he forgot to search. There was only the warmth of the water, the texture of clay beneath his fingers, the sound of other bowls placed gently beside him. Nothing profound, nothing dramatic. Yet in that simple attention something softened. The need for a special moment relaxed. He realized that much of his striving had been for an experience that would stand apart from ordinary life. A peak, a summit. But here in the repetition of washing bowls he sensed a different possibility. Perhaps awakening was not an event. Perhaps it was a way of being with whatever event occurred. That evening, he approached the elderly monk again. "I have not found what I came for," Soren confessed. The monk looked at him kindly. "And what did you come for? For something beyond the ordinary." The monk picked up a small wooden cup from the railing and held it between them. "What is this?" he asked. "A cup. Is it ordinary?" "Yes." The monk tilted it, letting the last drop of tea fall to the ground. "And what is beyond it?" Soren hesitated. "I do not know." The monk smiled. "If you cannot find what is beyond this cup," he said gently, "how will you find what is beyond the world?" The words lingered. Soren returned to his sleeping mat that night and lay awake listening to the wind move along the temple walls. He had imagined awakening as a departure from the ordinary. But what if it was a return to it? The next morning he rose before the bell and stepped outside. Mist drifted across the courtyard. A single bird called from the eaves. He did not search for meaning in the sound. He did not ask whether this was the moment. He simply listened. The mist thinned. The bird fell silent. Experience unfolded without commentary, and in that unfolding there was nothing lacking, no special state, no dramatic shift. Just this. For the first time since leaving home, Soren stopped measuring his progress. He stopped comparing today's meditation to yesterday's. He stopped scanning for signs of advancement. He swept the courtyard because it needed sweeping. He sat because sitting was scheduled. He ate because hunger arose. And gradually the simplicity itself became luminous. Not because it glowed, not because it changed form, but because he was no longer looking past it. The extraordinary he had sought in distant mountains was hiding inside the ordinary he had overlooked. Nothing special had been found. And in that very nothing, there was a quiet completeness. When the leaves began to turn at the edges of the valley, Soren understood that his time at the temple was nearing its natural close. He had not achieved a grand awakening. He had not received secret teachings. He had washed bowls. He had swept stone paths. He had watched mist rise and fall over distant hills. And something within him had grown simple. On his final morning, he bowed to the elderly monk. "I did not find what I imagined," Soren said. The monk's eyes warmed. "And what did you find?" Soren paused. "I found that I was always searching past what was here." The monk nodded. "Then you have not wasted your journey." With that, Soren began the walk back toward his village. The same road that had once shimmered with promise now felt quiet and familiar. He did not rehearse how he would describe his experience. He did not plan how others would perceive him. He walked. Fields unfolded on either side of the path. Rivers moved beneath wooden bridges. Clouds gathered and dispersed in wide, indifferent skies. Nothing announced his return. When he reached the edge of his village at dusk, the rooftops looked smaller than he remembered, or perhaps he no longer measured them against distant mountains. Children ran through the narrow lanes. Women called from doorways. The smell of cooking fires drifted into the cooling air. Life had continued without him. He stood for a moment, watching. A subtle thought surfaced. Is this enough, Wave? He did not follow it. He stepped forward. Neighbors greeted him with curiosity. What did you learn? One asked eagerly. Did you meet great masters? Another pressed. Soren smiled gently. I met many ordinary moments, he replied. They laughed, unsure whether he joked, but he felt no need to convince them. He resumed work in his family's small workshop the next morning. The tools felt familiar in his hands. The rhythm of labor returned easily. Yet something subtle was different. He did not work in order to arrive somewhere else. He did not treat each day as a stepping stone toward a future revelation. Hammer striking wood, breath entering and leaving, voices rising and falling in conversation. This was not lesser than the temple. It was not distraction from awakening. It was the field in which awakening lived. One evening, as he sat outside his home, watching twilight settle across the rooftops, he realized that he had indeed returned unchanged. He was the same man who had left, and yet he no longer believed that fulfillment lay elsewhere. The road had not transformed him into someone special. It had revealed that nothing special was required. The ox had never been far away. He had simply stopped chasing it. The village sound softened into night. Soren breathed in the cool air. There was no need to travel further. Wherever he stood, the path stood with him. To leave, to seek, to return. The movement seems circular, and yet something within that circle has softened. At the beginning of the journey, the seeker looks outward. He imagines truth, hidden beyond hills, inside temples, within distant teachers. Then he looks inward. He refines effort. He releases strain. He discovers that awareness itself was never broken. And finally he returns, not carrying answers, not wearing a different face, simply walking. There is a quiet stage of the path that does not draw attention. It does not shine with insight. It does not proclaim completion. It looks ordinary. A person buying vegetables in a crowded market, a hand exchanging coins, a voice greeting a neighbor. Nothing mystical, nothing dramatic. And yet this is where the journey ripens. For what use is clarity if it cannot stand amid noise? What use is stillness if it vanishes in conversation? What use is insight if it depends on isolation? The final movement of the path is not withdrawal, it is participation. Returning to the marketplace with open hands, not grasping, not pushing away, just living. Let us step now into that final scene. The marketplace opened each morning before the sun had fully risen. Wooden shutters lifted with hollow knocks. Baskets were carried out and set upon low tables. The first vendors arrived while mist still clung to its edges of rooftops. By mid-morning, the square pulsed with movement. Voices rose in practiced cadence. Prices called jokes exchanged complaints offered without real anger. The scent of baked bread, drifted beside sharper notes of garlic and crushed mint. Footsteps brushed against one another in narrow lanes between stalls. It was not a place designed for silence. Years earlier, he might have considered such noise an obstacle, something to endure or escape in order to find clarity. Now, as he stepped into the square, he did not feel himself entering distraction. He felt himself entering life. A man hurried past him, carrying a crate of apples stacked precariously high. A woman negotiated the price of rice with theatrical exasperation. Two elders sat near the fountain debating the weather with solemn intensity. Nothing in the scene announced holiness, and yet nothing was outside it. He paused near a stall of woven baskets. The vendor, without looking up, asked, "Looking for something?" The question lingered in the air. He smiled softly. "No," he said, "just walking." The vendor nodded, uninterested in philosophy. Walking was enough. He moved slowly, not from detachment but from ease. His eyes rested lightly on whatever appeared bright cloth, shifting in wind hands, weighing figs, sunlight flashing briefly on a metal scale. There was no urge to interpret, no impulse to elevate or dismiss. A child stumbled and began to cry. Her mother lifted her, gently brushing dust from small knees. Tears dissolved into laughter within moments, rising, falling like breath. He noticed that awareness did not strain to include any of it. Sound entered and left. Movement passed through open space. The mind occasionally offered commentary, too crowded, too loud, too ordinary. Wave. The commentary faded as easily as it had formed. He stopped at a tea stall where steam curled upward in quiet spirals. The vendor poured without ceremony. Tea struck the bottom of the cup with a soft rhythm. He received it with both hands. Warmth spread through his palms. The surface trembled slightly from distant footsteps. He lifted the cup and drank. Nothing mystical occurred. The taste was simply taste. The warmth, simply warmth. And yet there was no gap between the act and the one who acted. Drinking happened, walking happened, listening happened, without an owner demanding significance. He remembered how once he had believed awakening required retreat, that insight could only survive in quiet halls or beneath open mountain skies. Yet here in the center of barter and bargaining, the same stillness moved freely. It was not fragile. It did not retreat before noise. It did not belong to silence. A vendor struggled with a tangled rope securing a canvas awning. Without thinking, he stepped forward and helped loosen the knot. Their hands worked side by side in brief coordination. When the knot gave way, the canvas fell into place. The vendor laughed. "Thank you." He nodded. No teaching had been offered, no lesson spoken. Action had arisen where needed. He realized that returning to the marketplace did not mean carrying enlightenment into the world. It meant discovering there had never been a boundary between them. The sacred was not elsewhere. It shimmered quietly in exchanged coins and shared glances, in the rhythm of footsteps crossing stone. As the sun shifted westward, light turned warmer, softening the sharp edges of midday. Stalls began to close one by one. Voices lowered. The marketplace exhaled. He walked toward the edge of the square without hurry. Nothing had been gained. Nothing needed preserving. The path had led him away and back again, only to reveal that each step, even the first one taken from this very square, had always unfolded within the same open awareness. He passed through the narrowing crowd like any other man returning home at dusk. No aura, No proclamation, just breath moving quietly in and out, and hands at rest open. Evening settled slowly over the village. The marketplace, once loud with exchange, softened into scattered conversations and the quiet scraping of wooden stalls being drawn shut. Smoke rose in thin blue threads from cooking fires. Somewhere a door closed gently. Somewhere else, laughter lingered before dissolving into night. He walked without destination, not searching, not concluding, just walking. A woman poured water from a clay jar into a metal basin. The stream caught the last light, turning briefly to liquid gold, before disappearing into stillness. A boy traced shapes in dust with a stick, then erased them with a sweep of his hand. An old dog, stretched in the doorway of a shop, circled once and lay down with a sigh that sounded almost human. Nothing extraordinary, and yet everything complete. He paused beneath a fig tree near the edge of the square and looked up. Leaves shifted against the darkening sky. Between them, the first evening star appeared, small, steady, unconcerned with being noticed. Breath entered, breath left. No effort required to maintain it. He remembered how once he had chased moments that felt luminous peaks of silence, flashes of clarity, experiences that seemed to rise above the ordinary texture of life. Now luminosity was quiet. It shimmered in unnoticed details. In the warmth of a cup placed into waiting hands. In the brief meeting of eyes between strangers. In the simple rhythm of footsteps returning home. The miraculous did not announce itself. It moved softly through what had always been here. A breeze passed cool against his skin. He did not try to hold it. It came, it went. Awareness remained. He realized that the path had never been a ladder climbing toward something higher. It had been a clearing, a gradual falling away of what obscured what was already present. Nothing had been added, nothing essential removed. The ox had been searched for, chased, restrained, ridden, and finally forgotten. What remained was simply walking. Night deepened. Lanterns flickered to life in windows along the narrow streets. He turned toward his home. Each step sounded softly against stone. Each sound dissolved into the larger quiet of evening. There was no sense of arrival, only this unfolding moment complete in itself. And if someone had asked him then what he had gained from his journey, he might have struggled to answer. Perhaps only this, the discovery that nothing was missing, that life in all its noise and tenderness, its rise and fade in its laughter and loss, had always been enough. He reached his doorway and paused once more before entering. The sky above was vast and dark, scattered with distant light. He did not need to name it sacred. He simply stood beneath it, breathing, present. And in that quiet presence, the journey rested. Long before the marketplace, long before the mountains, long before the first question arose in the heart, there were footprints in the dust. A seeker once noticed them and wondered where they led. He followed through forests of effort, across rivers of doubt, up steep ridges of discipline. He glimpsed the ox. He struggled with it. He rode it home. He forgot it entirely. And in the end, he returned to where he had always been. The footprints had never pointed away from life. They had pointed deeper into it. Tonight, as you rest, you may notice your own subtle footprints. Moments of searching, moments of strain, moments of quiet recognition. Each one part of the same gentle arc. If this journey has felt meaningful to you, you are always welcome here on the long night.
a quiet place to return whenever the world feels loud. If you'd like these stories to remain close, you can subscribe and let this space be here for you whenever you need it. For now, there is nowhere else to go. Breath enters, breath leaves, thought rises, thought fades, and beneath it all, awareness remains. The path is not distant, it is here, in this breath, in this moment. Let the night soften around you. You are already home. Sleep now, nothing is missing.